Now I would like to introduce you to your keynote speakers, Dr. Sean Maurice and Jordan Henderson. Dr. Maurice is the Assistant Dean and Assistant Director of Histology, Northern Medical Program at the University of Northern British Columbia. He has been raising a family and teaching in the Northern Medical Program in the city of Prince George. He trained as a basic scientist, studying cells and proteins that contribute to fibrosis and cancer, and his teaching focuses on anatomy and histology. In 2022, he received Canada's highest post-secondary teaching honor, as he was named a 3M National Teaching Fellow. Jordan is a second-year medical student at the Northern Medical Program. Prior to medical school, she completed 2 years of undergraduate studies at UNBC in Prince George and another 2 years at UBC in Vancouver. So welcome and take it away, Dr. Maurice and Jordan.
All right, hi everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, Lisa and Dr. Cummings, for the warm welcome. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our stories and how we came to be in this place. Me as a teacher, first and foremost in the medical program, and Jordan as a student currently, and soon to be a physician. If you have any questions as we go along, please just enter them into the chat. As Lisa has already told us, there's a bit of a delay there. So we might not see it right away, but we will get to them when we have time as they come up or towards the end. Okay, so I'd first like to acknowledge we're coming to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Lheidli T'enneh in the small northern city, also known as Prince George. Our Indigenous peoples are very important stakeholders in what we're doing in the healthcare program, as they've had worse access to healthcare for a long time, and we're working on that. I'm also very lucky to have a lot of wonderful Indigenous scholars who've taught me how important it is to share your context, your story, and a little bit about your family, which is not something scientists are normally taught to do, but I'll try to do that. So here's just some silly pictures of me from a lot of years ago climbing mountains. When I was in high school and in early university years, I liked science, and I did okay in science, but I wasn't a straight A student, I can tell you that. And I really wanted to spend a lot of time outdoors having adventures, camping and hiking, and also climbing. So here's a picture of me in Yosemite and on top of Mount Assiniboine in the Rockies 20 years ago. As someone who liked to spend a lot of time in the outdoors, I naturally was attracted to this cute young girl who liked to spend a lot of time in the outdoors back when we met, or I should say young woman, back when we met at university. And we got married pretty young, actually, at 21. And for several years before having children, we did some pretty fun adventures in the mountains. And then, of course, children changed that, but you can still have adventures with children, and we continue to do that. So we actually got a double C kayak for a used one as a wedding gift. And our honeymoon was 2 weeks sea kayaking, and we did a number of trips before we had kids. And then we had kids, and we thought, well, having a screaming baby in a kayak sounds not so fun and a bit dangerous. And so we managed to sell that and buy this inflatable little motorboat. And we did a number of camping trips with the kids when they were little. And as they got older, we could do different things. And so we have 3 teenagers right now, maybe close to some of your ages. And the top left of the screen is us hiking around Lake Louise. The bottom left is doing the West Coast Trail just before the pandemic. And on the right is a picture of us after spending 5 days hiking and backpacking at Mount Robson. If anyone knows where that is, you can't currently do that trail because the trail washed out a couple of years ago and they're fixing it. But there's a portion of it you can cycle, and then you have to hike with your backpacks. And it's not super fun cycling with a big backpack, but on the way out, it's kind of nice because you get to go zooming past all the hikers and your legs get a bit of a rest. But we did this trip and it ended with a lot of rain. So we hiked for a lot of kilometers in the rain, and then we hopped on our bikes and we were cycling across wet bridges that were a bit sketchy and through mud puddles. But it was sort of fun. It was a suffering sort of fun. And I think there's something pretty neat about the outdoors for that, because there's moments where it's absolutely beautiful and straightforward. And there's moments where it's a lot of work. And there's even moments where there's some suffering, when you've got blisters or it's pouring rain and it's not altogether fun. Sometimes you just have to survive through those things, and then you feel happy afterwards that you've done that. Usually you come away feeling kind of proud that you made that work. Sometimes you have to run away when the conditions change and you can't do what you wanted to do. But all of that, I think, is good life experience. So I think adventure involves uncertainty. And just for fun, this is one of my midlife things, I guess, has become fat biking. So I can ride my bike in the winter and get to work. I don't do it every day, but I really do enjoy it when I get the chance to. So I want to switch gears a little bit. That's a little bit about me as an outdoors person, but I want to tell you part of why I decided to go into science. I was in a biochemistry 300 class at UBC, and a professor named Dr. Ross McGillivray was teaching this class of 300 students. It's too big of a class to know everybody. And he was somebody who was a very busy scientist. He was an administrator of a big research center. And he also had time to come into the classroom and be inspiring and to share his excitement for science with this big group of people who he didn't know personally. And so one of the examples that helped to inspire me to go into science, this was around the time in the early 2000s when the human genome was first being sequenced. And I trust you know that all of our cells in our bodies, except for some like the surface skin cells and red blood cells that don't have nucleuses anymore, but all the other cells have 3 billion base pairs of DNA. And that has all the instructions to make you who you are. And your skin cells have the instructions to make a liver or to make an eyeball. All of them have the instructions, which is kind of crazy. And we have 3 billion base pairs, and that's a big number. It's hard to imagine how big that is. So Dr. McGillivray told us that if you wrote out all the base pairs in the human genome in 12-point font Times New Roman on regular sheets of paper, and you stacked all those sheets of paper up, that would be taller than the biggest building in downtown Vancouver. And that blew my mind. And it also got me excited that this guy, who was quite a bit older than me at that time and was doing all this work in science, still was kind of nerdy and really excited about science. And I thought, maybe I want to do that and be a nerdy scientist and do some teaching as well. So I went and I did a PhD, and these are just a couple of artifacts to give you an idea of what that looks like. On the top left are breast cancer cells grown in tissue culture. So that's just in a plastic flask in a lab, so you can study what they do and make some changes and see what happens. On the bottom left is tissue from a normal human breast with different stains, fluorescent stains, to help us understand what's happening. That's one of the techniques we can use to see what are different proteins doing under different circumstances, and are they part of what's happening in cancer or not. Now, as a teacher, I teach histology, which is looking at cells under a microscope. And on the top right, there is a normal breast tissue. And on the bottom right, that's breast cancer from a patient who'd had some tissue taken so that the pathologist could see what's going on and how bad is it, and then make recommendations to the physicians on what we should do for treatment. So medical students like Jordan get to learn these things so that if they go into pathology, they understand, they have a good foundation. But even if they don't, if they're in general practice, if they're in surgery or any other area of medicine, they can understand a pathology report and also understand the new research that comes out that changes the way that we practice, because medicine changes throughout the years. So the histology lab that I teach in looks something like this, and there are lots of computer screens, and we do digital histology. So instead of real microscopes, we have microscope slides that you can zoom in and zoom out of on screens. And small group teaching is quite fun. I also do teaching in lecture format in a lecture theater, broadcast over Zoom to other lecture theaters across the province. And I actually think teaching and learning are an adventure. I don't know if standing in front of an auditorium looks as adventurous to you as climbing a cliff, but I will tell you that a lot of your instructors get nervous. In fact, I don't think you can really do well if you don't get a little bit nervous before going in and making sure you're prepared. Students can ask questions of any sort. And nobody knows everything and can be prepared for all of those. And it's not super comfortable to be in front of a big group of people getting questions when you think, I have no idea. But that's just a reality, and you have to learn to cope with that. And of course, technology can surprise you, and you just need to roll with that. So I see teaching and learning as an adventure, and I think that for me, that metaphor helps me actually to embrace the challenges and the opportunities and such. But that doesn't mean I'm not also having adventures outside of the classroom. These are just a couple of more recent pictures of, on the bottom left is me. On the top left is a former student, Jeff, who was a climber. I met at the climbing gym, and we started climbing outside of school, and we eventually climbed Mount Robson together. So those two pictures are on the left are of us on the top of Mount Robson. On the top right is my boss and my dean, Dr. Paul Winwood. He's a gastroenterologist and an administrator running the program. But I also know him well enough that we've had the chance to go backcountry skiing together. And so on the bottom right there, he's just, we were skiing and it was a good powder day. And on the way down, he fell, and I had to get a picture of him. So I really like being in a small place where there's lots of nature around, and you actually have a chance to get to know some of the people you work with and your students and have adventures together. I've also had the chance to do some outreach to youth in the region. And so this is in collaboration with Carrier Sekani Family Services. I've helped out with some canoe trips over the years, working with Indigenous youth, paddling 150 kilometers down Babine Lake, and getting to see some Indigenous communities and learn from elders along the way. And it's been quite a privilege and a lot of fun to do that. I've also been leading this initiative called the Healthcare Traveling Roadshow for some time now. We take an interprofessional group of healthcare students, and I'm glad Dr. Cummins introduced that to us. There's a lot of different careers in healthcare, not just physicians, and they're all important, and they work in a team. And so this is a trip where we take students from usually about 9 different career tracks at once, students who are still in training, but to become physicians, nurses, physios, x-ray techs, midwives, lots of different jobs, some that you may not have heard of. And we go to small towns, we give little presentations, bring a lot of equipment, and let the students see everything that we've brought, ask questions of the students, and then we go and visit healthcare centers and things and just get an idea of what rural living and practice could look like. And it's actually through the Healthcare Traveling Roadshow that I met Jordan, or that I worked most with Jordan. And so I think now I'll turn it over to Jordan to tell you a bit about her story.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, so I guess you already know, my name's Jordan, and I'm a second-year student in UBC's Northern Medical Program, which is based out of Prince George. And I'm just going to be telling you guys a little bit about my journey to medical school and a little bit about before medical school. So yeah, if you have any questions along the way, just pop them in the chat and we can answer them after. So I was actually born and raised here in northern BC. So I was actually born just an hour north-ish of Prince George in Vanderhoof, and then my family eventually relocated, and my parents are still living in Quesnel, which is just an hour south of Prince George. So the Northern Medical Program was, and still is, a really cool option for my medical training. It's nice to be close to home. So yeah, I just have some pictures on here from my time growing up and stuff like that. So I grew up with my family. We lived on a little farm, so I have one of our horses on there. And so I spent lots of time outside, and I love animals. And I was also a competitive gymnast, and so I think that's given me a lifelong love of like fitness and pretty much anything that involves being active. I really enjoy, especially if it also involves being outside. I love to run and hike and ski and bike and all that fun stuff. And my family home in Quesnel is actually on 10 Mile Lake. So we get to do lots of like super fun water sports in the summertime. And yeah, so you can go to the next slide, please, Sean. Thank you. So I went to high school in Quesnel, and I graduated from the high school there, which is called Coraloo, in 2017. And then in September of 2017, that's when I started my first year of university at UNBC here in Prince George. And at this time, I was doing Bachelor of Science with a major in biology. So at this point, like at the end of high school and at the beginning of university, I knew that I liked science. I really liked biology, and I really liked chemistry, hence why I picked the Bachelor of Science with the major in biology. And I knew that I was maybe interested in healthcare, but I definitely didn't know, I didn't even know what all the different options were, and I definitely didn't know what career I wanted. to like be my future. And I think that that's super, super normal. I know there's like a pressure at the end of high school that you need to know exactly what you want to be doing and the pathway you're going to take to get there. I definitely didn't. And I also changed my mind like all the time. So that's really normal. Everyone in my class actually has like a totally different journey of how they got to medical school. So yeah, try not to feel that pressure. It all ends up working out. Like if you figure things out while you're in school, you take gap years and figure things out then, you'll eventually end up exactly where you're supposed to be. So try not to feel that pressure. It's really normal to not know and then also change your mind. But I knew that I was interested in healthcare. Sorry, you can go to the next slide again, Sean. And I think that my interest mainly came from like my own experience living in a rural community and accessing healthcare as a patient, and especially as like a young girl and a woman. I knew that I was interested and eager to learn more about rural healthcare in general, but also specifically rural women's health I was really interested in. So I kind of had this vague idea of what my interests were. I just didn't know where I was going to take them. So in the first like couple years of my undergrad, especially, I started reaching out to try and like create opportunities for myself to get to explore different healthcare professions. And I actually did a lot of shadowing during this time. I think I shadowed like dentists, dietitians, physiotherapists, optometrists, and actually the optometrist that I shadowed here in Prince George, I then ended up working at his clinic for 2 years. So that was a really great experience. So I would definitely, at some point along your journey, if it's an option for you to do shadowing, it was super helpful for me just to kind of figure out, is this something I could imagine myself doing, or is it definitely not something I can imagine myself doing? And I always had just a great time getting to know the people too. So yeah, if that's at all possible for you, that was really helpful for me to kind of like figure out what I actually liked. I was also doing during this time quite a bit of like extracurricular things, volunteering. I was doing like drop-in gymnastics. At this point, I just honestly was hoping to make new friends in university, so I just sign up for things. I really like working with kids, so anything that involved kids, I was signing up for. And my job at the eye clinic was medically related, and maybe like one other thing I did was medically related, but honestly, most of the other things were not, and they were just things that I thought were fun. And yeah, some of them were extremely not related to medicine. Like every summer in between the school semesters, I would go back to Quesnel and I would work at the sawmill, which, yeah, there was no medicine going on there. But it was an experience that I had, and I did put it on my med school application. I think there's like this idea if you want to apply to a competitive program that you have to do like certain extracurriculars that will look good on your application. But I think it's really important to do things that you actually enjoy and that are of interest to you. Not that I particularly enjoyed my job at the mill, but I did make great money and I enjoyed that. But everything else I did, I just did because I really enjoyed. And I also think the more unique things you have on your application, the more you stand out as an applicant, and that's awesome. So yeah, try to just pick things that you think are fun and not worry about making your application any sort of way. Yeah, so you can go to the next slide again, Sean. Thank you. So by the end of my second year of undergrad, I knew a little bit more about what I was interested in. I knew that I really liked human physiology and like biology, and I really liked nutrition studies. And so at this point, I actually decided that I wanted to continue my Bachelor of Science with my major, not in biology, but now I wanted to do nutrition. And unfortunately, this was in 2019, so I don't know, it might be different now, but at this time, UNBC did not have the Bachelor of Science with the major in nutrition. So I had to switch to UBC in Vancouver, which was quite the experience for me. I had never lived in the big city before, and even just like the student body count at UBC is bigger than any town that I ever lived in growing up. And so it was very overwhelming for me, and it was like a huge adjustment. But I am very thankful for my time there because, well, I did have some great experiences once I got used to the whole new situation. But it also definitely cemented that I would like my future life and career to be in a more rural place. And this is also when I decided that I wanted to go to medical school. So when I was there, I got to go to some talks with the current UBC medical students at that time, just to kind of hear about like their journey to medical school and like what they have their thoughts on medical school. So I guess kind of like what I'm doing right now, just a full circle moment. Yeah, and then I kind of started doing my own research at this point, just because I was really curious what a career as a rural physician looked like. And I got to talk to some people that were working in more rural hospitals. And I was just amazed by the diversity of the career that is a rural physician. Like, for example, the family doctors in Vanderhoof, where I'm initially from, they do so many things. They do, like, some of them do surgery, they work in the ER, they have their clinics where they do like women's health and all those things that I was interested in. They do maternity care. And I was just so impressed by the huge impact that they were having on their rural community. And I got really excited for the future impact that I could potentially have as a physician in a rural community. And I also just thought it sounded like, and I still do think it sounds like the coolest job in the world. So I knew at that point that I really wanted to go to medical school. And yeah, sorry, you can go to the next slide again, Sean. Or yeah, okay, it's fine. Sorry, I was a little premature, but that's okay. Yeah, so from there, it was kind of just a whirlwind. I decided that at the beginning of May 2020 that I would like to go to medical school. So then you have to write the MCAT, which is the admissions test, before you can apply. So I studied for June and July for the MCAT, and then I wrote it at the beginning of August 2020. And then I submitted my medical school application at the end of August 2020. And I just applied to UBC because I was really hoping that I would get to come to the Northern Medical Program. So I don't know if you guys know, but I don't know about other medical schools. UBC has a site in Prince George. They have their site in Vancouver. They have a site in Victoria and a site in Kelowna. So I really wanted to come to the Prince George site, UBC. And I submitted that application at the end of August. And then I had to wait until December of 2020. And that's when I found out I got my interview, which I was so excited. Kind of when you apply, you just have no idea where you're going to fall with the other applicants. And like, I just really was shocked and so happy to even get an interview. And then I had my interview a few months later in February of 2021. And then I had to do the long, painful wait from February until the middle of May 2021. And that's when I got my invite to join the Northern Medical Program. And so, yeah, I was shocked to get an interview. So I was like so shocked, but so happy and so excited that I was going to get to. At this point, I was in Vancouver. So I was really excited that I was going to get to come back to Prince George and get to be a part of the Northern Medical Program. And now I'm here in my second year. And I really love the program. I think one of my favorite things about it is that it's a super fun way to learn. So for example, in our lectures, we get to learn about like different organs, body systems, diseases that affect them, etc. And then we get to go into like our anatomy lab or histo lab, and we get to see these things right in front of us. Like we get to see the organs and the muscles, etc. Whatever we're learning about right in front of us, we can touch them, we can see how they connect. Like it's just such a unique and super cool way to learn. I really enjoyed it anyways. And I think one thing that surprised me about medical school is that I thought, like even compared to my undergrad, that I would just have no life and all I would just have to do was study, which I'll be honest with you, most of what I do feels like studying, but I also do get to do lots of really cool stuff. And I've got really cool classmates and we do lots of fun stuff together. Like I think last winter I went cross-country skiing like pretty much every day, and we would go downhill skiing on the weekends. And I study with my friends, which makes studying way more fun. And I do fun things like this pretty much every week, like extra things that get me excited about medicine and like my future. So I also went to a suturing workshop this week, for example. And last week I went to a rural med interest talk, which was really cool. So yeah, stuff like that makes medical school extra fun to get to do cool opportunities. But yeah, I really enjoyed the program. I really enjoyed being up here in the north too. I think we have amazing clinical experience, and all of the doctors we get to work with are so kind and so welcoming to learners. And yeah, it's really amazing. So that's kind of my journey to here, and that was kind of all I had to say. So thank you all so much for listening.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you both for sharing your stories. That is great. Sean, did you want to speak to your... Oh, great. Good. Okay. Perfect. Keep on going.
All right. We have maybe 5 more minutes or so.
No, you've got the time. I just, I misunderstood my...
No, it's okay. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Jordan. And so that's a bit of who we both are. And hopefully you can see that neither of us are textbook perfect people, but we're good people. And actually probably perfect is somebody who has diverse experiences, right? If you have particular interest in medicine, this is just a really quick overview of what you need to get into medicine at UBC. The website is down here at the bottom, and I just encourage you, if you have computers at your school or at home and internet, you can do a lot of looking now. It's sort of overwhelming how much information is online, but you can find out this information. So Jordan mentioned the MCAT. That's a big test, which most medical schools require, but not all. UBC medicine currently requires you to spend 3 years at university in whatever program, do the MCAT, and get an English class. The biochemistry and stuff is optional. And we actually have students now from lots of different backgrounds, like some people who have backgrounds in drama and writing and stuff, who also enjoy science. And it's so valuable to have those different experiences and different backgrounds in the class. If you are Indigenous, if you're from a small community in the north or rural areas, if you have Black ancestry, there are special pathways at UBC and at most schools to value your life experience as different from a lot of other people's, and which is really important. And we need diverse healthcare workers, physicians and others, serving our population, because our population is diverse, and we're going to do a better job if we have different views in the profession. So please don't think that your life experience, if it's different from most people around you, is not also relevant and important. There's lots of online resources if you're excited about these topics and you just want to do a bit of looking. At UBC, we have an excellent anatomy resource, which allows you to look at different parts of the body in different ways. There'll be information that is sort of more than you learn in high school, of course, but some of it will make a lot of sense, and hopefully will be interesting and give you a chance to sort of test out, would I enjoy learning this stuff in the future? We also have a neuroanatomy website, which has tons and tons of resources, videos and quizzes and modules and all sorts of things. We mentioned the Healthcare Traveling Roadshow already, and we've also developed a virtual Healthcare Traveling Roadshow to give you an idea of what we do on the roadshow, which is to showcase different healthcare careers. There's about 14 careers on this website now, and we're continuing to add to it. And they're just 2 to 3 minute videos with a small amount of information about various careers and links to admissions websites if you want to go there for more info. This is really just to give you some exposure. So those are just screenshots from the videos. The website looks something like this. It allows you to choose, if you wish to, programs that are short versus programs that are long, or you can just look through all of them and click on those pages and see a little bit more about those careers. In BC, and I don't think you actually have to be from BC, but we have a program called Rural E-Mentoring, which is meant to support rural students who have maybe less exposure to different health professionals. So you can get mentored through somebody who's a student or a professional. You can have conversations online and through Zoom, just to chat about what it's like and how do you get into university. Now, if you're from a small town and your parents didn't go to university, it feels a lot more foreign than it does if you're from a big city and your parents did go to university. So this is just a way to get in touch with someone you can talk to and ask questions of. This is from the BC government making predictions on what sorts of careers are going to be needed in the future. There's several pages, and this page is focused on health. And you can see in bold, cardiac perfusionists, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioner, occupational therapist, licensed practical nurse, med lab tech, respiratory therapist, etc. So there's lots of need for jobs in healthcare. People are always going to need healthcare. People are growing older, so it's a good place to be. You're never going to be without work. And these last few slides I have sent out as a PDF, and they're going to get sent out to you, so that if you want to have all these links, I should have told you that at the beginning, you'll be able to copy them and look these things up. And lastly, I just want to say that if you want to be in healthcare, you belong here. We need you here. We need a diverse workforce. This is Dr. Rebecca Eatman. She's an Indigenous physician who recently graduated from UBC and family medicine and is back working in community and also in leadership positions within the medical school. In this article, she's quoted saying, "I'm sure some people thought I was crazy or maybe just very naive. The doctors on TV didn't look like me, neither did TV families, which seems so different from me, my mother, my sister, and my 2 brothers." So if you feel like you haven't seen a physician who looks like you, that doesn't mean that we don't need you. It probably means we very much do need you. as a physician, as a nurse, as a midwife, in healthcare, doing research. Yeah, so please don't let your circumstances limit you. There are lots of, we need diversity, and there are lots of ways to get support. And with that, I think I will stop sharing, and we'll just open it up for any questions.